The world convinced you that your smartphone is a passive tool waiting for your command. They lied. It is an autonomous extraction engine, actively engineered to harvest your cognitive bandwidth. This is why you feel that unexplainable mental exhaustion by 2 p.m. every single day. It is not a lack of personal discipline. It is the physical cost of 2 million years of human biology being weaponized against you. You likely suspect this. It is why you mute your notifications to regain focus. But what actually happens when you turn them off, and why it mathematically guarantees you will check your screen more often, is the mechanism this video exposes. To understand the trap, look at the baseline data. Today, 89% of all smartphone interactions are initiated entirely by the user's internal habits, completely independent of any external ping. The software does not need to call you anymore. The mechanism is already inside your head. For over 2 million years, the human nervous system developed in an environment defined by brutal, unforgiving resource scarcity. The brain evolved to survive, not to rest. In that void, dopamine functioned as an aggressive prediction error signal. It compelled early hominids to expend massive caloric energy to secure scarce food and to relentlessly monitor their social standing. Within early localized tribal groups, typically limited to Dunbar's number of 150 individuals, ostracization meant certain starvation. Social validation was mathematically equivalent to physical survival. Concurrently, evolution installed a secondary, involuntary hardware protocol. Neuroscientists identify it as the orienting response. This is an automated, hypervigilant threat detection circuitry. If a sudden movement shifted the peripheral shadows or a sharp acoustic snap broke the silence, conscious deliberation was a lethal luxury. The amygdala would instantly hijack the central nervous system, completely bypassing the logical, slow processing centers of the prefrontal cortex. It physically forced the eyes to dart toward the anomaly. You had to look, because the absolute biological penalty for ignoring a sudden environmental stimulus was immediate death by predation. The architects of the attention economy did not engineer new psychological vulnerabilities. They executed a logistical autopsy on this exact prehistoric hardware, and they discovered a fatal cognitive bottleneck. They recognized that the human brain is structurally incapable of distinguishing between a genuine physical survival threat and the sudden, manufactured haptic vibration of a digital device. This is the accelerating evolutionary mismatch. Silicon Valley corporations isolated your deep survival imperative for tribal inclusion, and they deliberately fused it with the involuntary orienting response. They systematically commodified the biological panic that kept your ancestors alive, transforming it into quantifiable metrics of friction-free engagement. Your 2-million-year-old instinct for basic safety is now the primary, uncompensated fuel cell for a multi-billion-dollar digital extraction machine. In the mid-20th century, behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner demonstrated that the fastest method to compel a biological organism into repetitive, addictive behavior was not a predictable reward. It was profound uncertainty. He termed this the intermittent variable reward schedule. If an organism presses a lever and receives food every single time, it will only press when hungry. But if the lever dispenses a reward at entirely randomized intervals, the dopaminergic system becomes frantic. The organism will press the lever until it physically collapses from exhaustion. Platform engineers observed this biological exploit. They digitally instantiated it into the foundational architecture of the modern user interface. Consider the ubiquitous pull-to-refresh motion. This specific kinetic gesture perfectly mirrors the mechanical lever of a casino slot machine. When you drag your screen downward, you are subjected to a calculated, algorithmically enforced micropause, a suspended moment of artificial loading. During this fractional delay, your ventral tegmental area floods with dopamine. The anticipation of social validation spikes your neural activity to its absolute zenith before the feed even updates. To ensure you never exit this loop, platform architects systematically eradicated the natural stopping cues that previously signaled your brain to disengage. The invention of infinite scroll architectures permanently bypassed the reflective, deliberate decision-making networks of your prefrontal cortex. There is no bottom of the page, and there is no logical endpoint. You are trapped in an automatic, heuristic-driven consumption state. You are floating in a frictionless void where the necessity of choice has been quietly removed. This frictionless state is then intentionally punctured by highly engineered visual violence. The system runs A/B tests on millions of typography variations, ultimately weaponizing bright red notification badges for a very specific reason. Red does not signify an update. In nature, red signals venom. It signals blood. It signals an immediate existential threat. It is an optical override designed strictly to force your orienting response to hijack your visual cortex. It creates a false sense of evolutionary urgency that you cannot physically ignore. They built a digital cage where the bars are constructed from your own neurotransmitters, and they ensure your absolute compliance from the very second you open your eyes. To observe the terrifying efficacy of this invisible architecture, consider what happens the exact moment you open those eyes in the morning. Before your feet even touch the floor, you reach for the glass slab resting on your nightstand. This action is not driven by conscious, deliberate intent. You did not decide to do this. It is a conditioned neurological reflex, forged and reinforced through thousands of prior dopamine loops. As the device illuminates the dark room, you are immediately greeted by an array of red notification badges. These specific colors bypass your logical processing entirely. They tap directly into the amygdala's threat detection pathways, initiating a low-level cortisol spike that perfectly mimics ancestral survival stress. You open the application with the rational, entirely logical intention of merely clearing the notifications. But the infinite scroll mechanism seamlessly engages. It feeds you algorithmically optimized content designed to dissolve all temporal awareness. 30 to 40 minutes of your finite, unrecoverable time are extracted before you have even begun your day. You lost the war before you even stood up. A secondary manifestation of this systemic hijacking occurs during moments of mundane environmental friction. Consider the simple act of waiting in a physical queue at a grocery store checkout. Historically, this brief period of inactivity provided the human brain with necessary cognitive downtime. It was the exact space required to engage the default mode network, the biological system responsible for memory consolidation and long-term planning. However, in the modern attention economy, this micro-boredom has been engineered into a powerful internal trigger. Without a single conscious thought crossing your prefrontal cortex, your hand extracts the device from your pocket. Even if you attempt to resist, if you try to focus entirely on the physical act of paying for your groceries, the sudden haptic vibration of a push notification against your leg changes the equation. It commands your orienting response within milliseconds. It completely resets your cognitive focus, leaving behind an attentional residue that fundamentally degrades your ability to remain present in the physical world. We are no longer discussing personal distraction or a lack of modern discipline. We are witnessing the establishment of an invisible architecture that has successfully integrated billions of isolated human nervous systems into a synchronized network of continuous cognitive extraction. Empirical meta-analyses reveal the terrifying ubiquity of this system. Global digital addiction prevalence currently stands at an estimated 26.99% for smartphone dependency across general populations. This represents a structural macroeconomic leakage of unprecedented magnitude. The systemic, planetary-scale erosion of sustained attention, coupled with chronic cognitive fatigue, has culminated in catastrophic losses to global workforce output. The cost of these perpetually distracted, algorithmically exhausted employees is quietly draining the world economy by an estimated $8.8 trillion annually. That is a deficit equivalent to exactly 9% of the global gross domestic product. Gallup, 2023. Wealth is not disappearing, it is being transferred. The financial incentives driving this cognitive harvest are vast, and they operate completely devoid of moral friction. In a single year, social media corporations extracted nearly $11 billion in advertising revenue exclusively from users under the age of 18 in the United States alone. They are aggressively monetizing the biological neuroplasticity of a developing generation, deliberately establishing deep-rooted dopaminergic dependencies years before their prefrontal cortices fully mature and develop the capacity for executive resistance. Furthermore, the sheer mechanical scale of this interaction is relentless. It is an unavoidable environmental hazard of the modern era. The average adult is now subjected to between 65 and 96 targeted algorithmic push notifications every single day. Each one is a precise strike against your orienting response. This inescapable behavioral conditioning compels the average user to physically touch, tap, swipe, or click their mobile device an astonishing average of 2,617 times within a standard 24-hour cycle. That relentless, involuntary physical engagement translates directly into working-age users dedicating upwards of 2.5 hours every single day strictly to social media consumption. It commands a massive 38% of their total available online time. You are unwittingly performing uncompensated physical labor for $1 trillion infrastructure, and your only reward is a profound, echoing exhaustion. They claim you engage with these platforms by your own free will, conducting a basic cost-benefit analysis. The ultimate defense of the attention economy is always personal responsibility. If you do not like the exhaustion, simply put the device away. Exercise your willpower. On paper, this is true. You are not a helpless victim. But what this standard model deliberately ignores is a brutal logistical reality. Your executive control center, the prefrontal cortex, is metabolically expensive hardware. It requires massive caloric energy to suppress urges and enforce discipline. Willpower is not a moral virtue. It is a strictly finite biological battery. The system does not need to break your free will. It only needs to trigger your low-energy amygdala hundreds of times a day, patiently waiting for your battery to drain to zero. This cultivated apathy, the false confidence that you can outsmart the system simply by placing your phone face down on your desk, is the most insidious triumph of the attention economy. The clinical data is devastating. The mere physical presence of a powered-down smartphone in your peripheral vision actively degrades your working memory capacity and fluid intelligence. Your brain is continuously burning metabolic fuel just to actively inhibit the urge to check it. The parasite feeds even when it is sleeping. And when you attempt to fight back by turning off notifications, you activate the paradox of notifications. Empirical studies show that muting alerts does not decrease screen time. Instead, it plunges your nervous system into profound psychological uncertainty. Stripped of external cues, your primitive brain panics about what tribal validation or digital rewards it might be missing. As a result, you manually unlock your screen significantly more often. You have transitioned from responding to an external bell to ringing the bell yourself. This conditioning runs so deep that your sensory thresholds become hypervigilant, resulting in phantom vibration syndrome. Your nervous system literally hallucinates hardware feedback that does not exist in reality. Even a single visible notification ping that you successfully ignore paralyzes your executive function for approximately 7 seconds, creating a lingering attentional residue that completely shatters deep focus. It was designed as a portal through which $1 trillion global infrastructure navigates you. Your chronic mental exhaustion is not a symptom of a weak character or a lack of modern discipline. It is the literal metabolic receipt for 2 million years of ancestral survival reflexes being systematically burned for corporate profit. You are tired because your nervous system has been kept in a state of high-alert, prehistoric combat for 8 hours a day. You have been fighting a predator that never sleeps, using a battery that was never meant to be drained this way. But the mechanism only remains invisible as long as it remains unnamed. Once you identify the orienting response, the intermittent reward, and the deliberate eradication of your stopping cues, the automaticity of the loop begins to fracture. The reflex is replaced by recognition. You are no longer a biological fuel cell reacting to a ghost in the machine. You are an observer, finally witnessing the logistical exploit for what it is. The extraction only works in the dark. By naming the enemy, you have already begun to starve the machine. The trap is exposed, the loop is closed, final close.